Hello, my name is Brian Brigham, and I'm a professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics at Kansas State University, and I'm also the director of the Arthur Capper Cooperative Center. And I'm recording this video from my office here at K-State in Waters Hall to share with you some of my thoughts on the evolving Kansas farmer cooperative landscape and also the results from a grain storage survey that we conducted back in 2020. So if you would like, feel free to go to our website, accc.k-state.edu, and you can download and print out these handouts that accompany this PowerPoint presentation. Follow along if you like. Also on our website, you can download and read a fact sheet that discusses the grain storage survey that was conducted back in 2020. Kind of gives a bit more of the detail in there, so feel free to go look at that as well. Before I get into the presentation and discussion, I would like to say thank you to CoBank for providing intern help in completing this grain storage survey. It's a big undertaking to go through all of this, to send out all the surveys to all the farmer cooperatives, local farmer co-ops that conduct business here in Kansas, and to have an understanding of how has grain storage capacity changed, how has it evolved. And in fact, one of those interns, Sierra Hodgkinson, co-wrote the fact sheet with me. So thank you to CoBank for providing that help, and also thank you to all of you who happen to be farmer cooperatives who helped complete that survey. I know it's a big undertaking, and so thank you for doing that. Before we get into discussion on the evolving cooperative landscape, I'd like to just share a little bit about the Arthur Capper Cooperative Center. We are a public-private partnership between Kansas State University and the Kansas Cooperative Council. We were formed back in 1984 as a way to meet our purpose, which is to determine, develop, and deliver research and education for the cooperative community. So it's been housed here in the Department of Agricultural Economics, and it's been a great public-private partnership that's reached to a lot of students, a lot of cooperative employees, a lot of cooperative directors, leaders, not just here within Kansas, but across the United States and even internationally as well. So just a little bit about the Capper Center and what we do. And again, you can feel free to go to our website to find out more information. Now, as we look at this cooperative landscape, I always like to start off with how have things changed over time. And as you can see from this graph, it's pretty clear that we've had consolidation within the co-op landscape here in Kansas, where back in the 50s, we had a peak of 364 total local Kansas farmer co-ops, and today we have 62. So we've seen that trend of consolidation throughout the cooperative industry. Now, I should also at the start give a definition and clearly define when I say local farmer co-op, what do I mean? So when I look at a local farmer co-op, it's a centralized co-op that has where the headquarters is located. So as I look at different structures that we see throughout Kansas, different alliances, we always tie back where the main headquarters is located and where that the senior leadership, the management of the cooperative is housed. So that when I say 62 local farmer co-ops today, that's what I mean. Now, if we look at this line, certainly we can see the trend, but if we overlay a little bit more about how the overall agricultural, the farming economy is going, we can maybe get a better understanding of how this consolidation has changed through time. And if we just add in, and then I've done this here, just a few lines to kind of break it up, we can look at different periods of time, in particular think about net farm income, how it has risen quite high from a boom to where it cycles back down, where we would maybe consider it a tough time, and then it picks back up and goes back down and picks back up. It's just something that we see as a trend through time, and that's relevant for farmer cooperatives because co-ops are owned by our farmer owners. So as our farming communities, as farmers go, it kind of tends to have an impact on cooperatives as well, primarily through our business structure because we are owned by those farmers. And so to go through this, if we look at these boom times, looking back into the 50s where we were feeding the wartime effort, net farm incomes were quite high. If we look at that segment, that slice, we don't see a lot of consolidation that happens within the state of Kansas. It's actually relatively flat, but if we think about it, times are going pretty well. There's not a huge need for that consolidation, so we don't see it as much. But when we were coming off of the wartime effort, net farm incomes fell, and then we started to see more consolidation begin to pick up within the state of Kansas. So those tough times generally kind of coincided with a pickup of the pace of consolidation. And then if we lay that throughout the rest of time, certainly the 70s, the golden era, there was, net farm incomes were quite high. There was still some consolidation, but we didn't see nearly the pace as the previous period of time. Certainly through the 80s, and this kind of a protracted period where we saw some net farm income come up and down, but it was really relatively flat. Certainly with some tough times. So we saw a pickup in the pace of consolidation among farmer co-ops. When we had ethanol and international markets opening up in the 2000s to 2010 timeframe, certainly was a boom time. Net farm incomes were up. We had a period most recently of a lull of some tough times. And now today, looking forward, into 2021 and beyond, at least with commodity prices as they are here in January of 2021, things look to maybe we're heading into another boom. But what does that mean for the cooperative space and when it comes to consolidation and how it's changing? Well, certainly when we look back during those tough times, certainly in the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, there was a lot of financial stress, was a big reason why we saw cooperatives beginning to consolidate, merge, and do different things. But, since about 2010, 2015, that period of tough times of 2015 timeframe, yes, we had consolidation, but it's been different. There's been a lot of different mergers and acquisitions, alliances that have formed that have brought that number down. So what is it going to look like for us going forward? This is something that can be discussed within the boardroom to figure out how do we go, moving forward. But if we are moving into a boom time, there's going to be some other reason for that consolidation. And at the end of the day, it's about adding value back to the membership. So it'll be something interesting to look and monitor as we go forward. Okay, so I want to share with you some of these grain storage results from the survey that was conducted. And we do this so that we can map the Kansas Farmer Cooperative landscape and kind of follow it as it evolves through time. So if we look at these 2016 was when we first conducted the grain storage map to get an idea of it. You can see that we had 81 local farmer co-ops with a Kansas-based headquarters. Now, certainly we have other co-ops in Nebraska, even down in Texas, on this map that do conduct business within Kansas. So we wanted to track it with the with grain locations in Kansas. So the center dot that you see on this map here represents the headquarters of the local farmer cooperative. And then the lines that are drawn out, it goes to an end point for an upright grain storage location. So that's how we just kind of see how through our grain storage survey, the coverage that you pick up here in Kansas. And one thing that you're going to see as it evolves through time is the country elevator system, at least here within within Kansas is largely tied to the cooperative industry. And you can see from this map, there's quite a bit of coverage through that. So as we track it through time, starting in every January, you can see how things evolve and change. In 2017, we had 76 local farmer co-ops. In 2018, we had 71. In 2019, we were down to 68. You can see how it continues to change. In 64, it went to in January of 2020, we went down to 64. And then today, in January 2021, we are at 62 local farmer co-ops. And this map currently is available on our website. You can access it down there in the link below. And it's interactive, so you can click on the map and zoom in through satellite view, click on each of the different end dots to see what that location is, click on the bigger center dot that tells you the co-op headquarters. You can look at all the different grain locations they have, as well as their storage capacity, whether that's upright, bunker, and flat. And this current map reflects those results from that 2020 survey, where in the 2020 survey we decided that we needed to better understand the breakdown of the different types of storage systems that are out there, because we've had a lot of changes within the state of Kansas. Certainly from a commodity mix standpoint, we are now growing a lot more corn, for example, than we ever have, even going back in time. So that has evolved and changed, and some of our systems have changed. So we wanted to make sure that we understood the upright, the bunker, and then as well as the flat storage and how it all looks. So feel free to go and look. But again, I think looking at the coverage that we have from local co-ops, as well as from even out-of-state co-ops that operate in the state, you can see the country elevator system is really closely tied to the cooperative system. Now, based off the survey, we were also able to look at the different locations and how many locations, grain upright storage locations, are tied to local co-ops. And then so here is just a table breakdown. Again, it's available on the handouts. You can see the breakdown of the 62 co-ops that we have. So first of all, there are 2 co-ops in the state, Healy and Leavenworth Co-op. They do not have any grain storage locations, but still are local farmer co-ops in the state. We also have 11 single location co-ops that you can see here as well. Now when we look at co-ops with 2 to 5 grain locations, there are 19 total of them. Again, you can look at who they are here. And then as we move up, between 6 and 11 grain locations, there are 15 of those within the state. And then finally, with 12 or more locations, we have 15 of those. So just kind of breaking it down just so you can see in a table who are these cooperatives and how many different grain locations they have tied to them. Now, if we compare back to our 2016 survey and to 2020 survey, we can see that actually of the 62 co-ops that are here in 2020, there were 19 that increased their locations. So you can see how the different changes from the different cooperatives as they reported to us back in 2016 and then reported into 2020, the different changes that we have. Now, a lot of these changes occurred primarily through mergers and acquisitions that happened within the state. And then also, too, you have to recognize that there's a net effect of this as well. Because certainly in the surveys that we received in 2020, there were a number of co-ops that maybe closed a particular location or built a new location or added storage to a location. So there's this change. So we have some that are shutting down, we have new ones that are being built, and then we also have mergers and acquisitions that change it. And if you look across these 19, all the stories are different. But I wanted to at least share with you just to see how some of these cooperatives have changed over the course of these from 2016 to 2020. Now, what's also interesting, and I made note, like we see back here the number of locations that net affect the change, but also too we had cooperatives that reported additional amount of space or storage that was being built. So this, doesn't reflect the storage capacity, but we did collect that storage capacity, and we want to share with you some of those aggregated results to show what is the amount and what kind is it. So looking at upright, bunker as well as flat, and then how has it changed over time, as well as compare it to on-farm storage and then non-cooperative storage as well. Share some of those results with you. So if we look at the three primary types of grain storage, cooperatives have the most capacity in Kansas. So if we look at on-farm storage, look at non-cooperative grain storage and cooperative grain storage, our 2020 survey, as well as the research that we conducted, 48.6% of the total grain storage capacity in the state of Kansas is tied to a cooperative, so it's nearly the majority. It's a large chunk, basically half of all the grain storage capacity that's out in the state of Kansas is tied to a local co-op, and we have that based off of our survey of 773 million, right? Nearly 774 million bushels of grain storage. If we look at the next largest segment, that is the non-cooperative storage space at 27.5%, just over 438 million bushel capacity. And then on the on-farm grain storage at 380 million, so just under 24% of the total storage within the state of Kansas. So that's the overall pie for 2020. But it's interesting to see how it's also changed since 2016. So one thing to note for cooperatives, non-cooperatives, and on-farm, all of these numbers went up, right? So they've all increased. They've added storage in those respective three areas or three types. So it's something that is reflective of how Kansas agriculture has changed and evolved, where we're producing more bushels. Whatever the commodity is, we're going to produce more of it. So we need to keep up with storage capacity out there in order to store this grain. But also, too, it's reflective of how the commodities have changed, right? In Kansas, we are rapidly becoming, if not already, a corn state where we have more of that value of production coming from corn as opposed to wheat. So the storage needs are changing and they're growing. They're getting bigger. If we look at those percent changes, though, from 2016 to 2020, so for on-farm grain storage in the upper left, that's right at about an 8% increase, right? So on-farm storage, we saw an 8% rise from 2016 to 2020. On the non-cooperative number, we see an increase of 14.6, so just under 15% increase in capacity. And then on the cooperative side, that 773 million, or about 774 million, and then back in 2016 where we were reporting 513 million, that's over a 50% increase. So it's quite huge. Now, we have to be fair. I have a lot more access to farmer cooperatives through the Capper Center to get this survey information collected. But back in 2016, when we did the survey, we only asked about the upright storage. We didn't get into bunker and flat. So if we look at that, if we look what we had back 2016, the 513 million to what we are today, the upright grain storage is 574 million, just over that. You'll see that here in a later slide. That's an increase of about 12%. So really, the 12% increase, if we were to do more of an apples to apples comparison of our 2020 survey to 2016. But overall, when we capture the everything that we want to know about the storage capacity that's out there from bunker and flat, it's a quite sizable amount, right? When we look across the entire Kansas grain storage capacity landscape. So just to also share with you the breakdown from the grain storage survey, you can see the total amount, that 574 million that we talked about just in the previous slide of upright. Bunker storage is just over 157 million, and then we have flat storage of just over 42 million. So just to share with you all that and the aggregate, the breakdown of those. Now the change from 2016 to 2020, I also think it's further interesting to kind of break it down because, within Kansas we have cooperatives from outside the state, from within the state. So of that change in that growth that we experienced, the difference in that grain storage capacity, where's a lot of it coming from? Is it coming from Kansas-based co-ops that are adding the storage, or is it coming from farmer cooperatives that from outside of the state? And what's pretty clear is the lion's share, 91%. Of that increase in grain storage comes from Kansas-based co-ops. So where we see that additional storage being added in, it's primarily being driven by Kansas farmer cooperatives with a Kansas headquarter. So in summary, Kansas farmer cooperatives are evolving. They're changing with their farmer owners. We have fewer cooperatives, but we also have fewer farmers, right? We're seeing farmers are also going under a consolidation phase, and because of our closed business model connection, right, the co-op business model, we're going to evolve and change with them. And it all boils down to, as we look at how things change, is that we need to make sure as a cooperative industry, we're meeting the needs and creating value for our farmer owners. Right? That's what it's all about as a farmer cooperative, finding ways to create value for farmers. Also, what's affecting us is that changing commodity mix, right? There's more need for storage capacity from changing commodities and also technology, right? So we're able to produce more bushels off of an acre of ground today, and it's only continuing to increase. So that adding grain storage capacity is something that we saw. When we look at the total number of grain locations, so if I was to go back to those previous slides and just sum them up for what we had for grain locations reported for farmer co-ops in 2016, as well as grain locations reported by farmer co-ops in 2020, that actual total number has kind of gone down slightly. So in 2016, there were 552 total grain locations, and then in 2020, that number, dipped down to 543. But the difference is, remember that even though those numbers are going down, there's actually more storage capacity, upright storage capacity available or at these locations. So back in 2016, that grain storage capacity upright was 513 million bushels, and then now it's over right around that 574 million bushel number. So it's gone up. We've added a fair amount of upright storage as well. So, of all, and then final kind of takeaway from the research that we conducted back in 2020 is that nearly 50% of grain storage capacity in the state of Kansas is tied to a co-op. So farmer cooperatives are extremely important to the agricultural landscape here in Kansas, because much of that grain storage that's out there, the country elevator system, is tied to cooperatives. All right, so that wraps up just a quick video here. I'm always here, happy to answer any questions that you all might have. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at bbrigg@ksu.edu. You can also call me at area code 785-532-2573. I'm here to help answer any questions that you might have. With that, take care and be well.